Hello, and welcome to Who the Fuck is in the Mirror. I have Joshua with me here, and today we are going to switch it up. And as always, because I don't like to just do the same thing, so boring. So, we're actually going to have him interviewing me about my experience that I had with DCS, which is one of people that have been listening to my podcast from the beginning or even just the first episode in general know that my past is pretty fucked up. And so one of the biggest things was the DCS incident.
Yeah, so I'm just going to ask questions, guys. I don't know anything about this at all. Um, she sent me a message late last night saying, "Hey, what do you think about doing this?" And the teaser was my experience with DCS, and I was all in right away. I've got a really busy day, but this is great. The reason is we talked about it briefly before the show. We're trying not to do too much talking before the show because all the good stuff happens there. But the
Right.
reason that I
We
coach a
have
lot
all the
of moms,
good stuff, and then we're
yeah,
like, we
they were
didn't
like,
even
"Oh, we already
record
talked
any of
about
that.
it." Yeah. So I coach a lot of moms, and an experience with DCS is like a guy telling you when he couldn't get it up, right? For moms, it is
Right.
like how embarrassing. Like I failed. I something literally somebody had to get involved, and maybe I did fail as a mom, maybe I didn't, but it sure looks like I did. Like reporting this to everyone else or talking about the details of it, super traumatic for moms. So all you moms out there that are dealing with mom guilt, it is a super big thing. I've not found very many moms that don't deal with it. So we're going to jump right into this. I have no idea what happened or how it went down. So Angela's willing to be vulnerable and open, and I think that deserves a round of applause right at the start. So, so what
Well,
happened?
clap, clap.
So was DCS called? Did you call them? Did your child call them? Like what happened?
So
Why did the confession
originally,
happen?
what had happened was I called them. So
Okay,
I had called them because my ex husband was letting my children around a pretty horrible person,
okay,
and that he did stuff to one of my kids. I won't get into
okay,
specifics because
sure.
again, I don't like it's
Yep.
her story. So,
Yes. Well said.
but he was still letting that man around my kids after, and he was telling them to lie
Mm.
for him. He said basically, if you love me, you'll
Oh,
lie, which I find all of this stuff out later, right? So
which is such a pattern of an abusive person.
right, right. So I found out a year later that he was still letting them around. And
Wow.
so the biggest thing for me was like anytime he would ask me, do you want to go? Like, can I have the kids? We're going to do
Yep.
an event. Like, we
Yep.
have a family thing. Every time it was the same. I said, okay, well, is that guy going to be there? Well, Angela, it's a family gathering. Well, I don't know what the fuck is up with your family, but no, it's
Yep.
not what we do here, bro. Right.
Yep.
And so there was like a back and forth, and he would say, okay, well, I'm not going to bring her there. I'm not going to do this.
Mhm.
Come to find out, he was still doing all the
Of
things.
course.
So the
He's
guy was
abusive.
actually living with
Oh my
with
gosh.
him. Yeah, it was just yeah.
So
So
anytime they went to be with their dad, they were getting exposed to an abuser.
correct. And when I found out, was when I was like, okay, like I have to call. I have to call because I like this is out of control. I thought he was going to keep him away. And my biggest thing was that I didn't like getting stuff like that involved. Like
Right?
if we can avoid, because a lot of times it is more traumatizing. Plus, if you know me, then you know that I was molested as a child, and I never really spoke up about it,
Mhm.
and it wasn't something that you talk about back then. Back then it was you keep your shit to your shit and don't tell anybody else about it, and you would be shamed and all this other stuff. So I was like, okay, I'm not going to do that, right? So I I didn't I didn't say anything at first because I thought it would be more traumatizing for her. Part of the thing that we talk about is um when you have trauma, you you can't really think critically. You can't really Like
Right.
you don't even know what's healthy, what's not healthy,
Trying to
right?
survive.
So
Yeah.
you're like, I don't really know what I'm supposed to do here. And so I hadn't. And when I found out that he was still letting that, I was like, okay, fuck this,
Yeah.
And so I called and I should have known. I should have known. So he messages me right after and he said, "Are you trying to ruin my life?" Yes, because this is about you, right? This is
Right.
That's
It's
what
not
I told
our
him. Like,
daughter.
yeah,
Yeah.
this is about you, right?
Yeah.
And he was like, "You're a horrible person. You're
Right.
ruining my fucking
Yep.
life." And I'm just
Yep.
like, okay. Right, right. He's never been diagnosed with like narcissism or anything. And I don't tread lightly when people say their ex is narcissistic because
Everybody's
it's
ex is
like, well, they
narcissistic.
have
Right.
narcissistic
Yep.
traits, right?
Yep. Right.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So I was like, I'm not going to go with that. But yeah. Oh yeah, he's definitely narcissistic.
Well,
That
and one
man.
of the things that that shows right away is that you set a boundary,
Right.
a legal boundary, and that even if I want to apply this to myself, if somebody sets a boundary with me and I lose my shit,
Right.
talking narcissism in me, right? We're talking no one can tell you no.
Yeah.
No one
Right.
can tell you that
Exactly.
there's a
And
limitation.
somebody telling me I can't do what I want
Yep.
to do,
Yep.
which is essentially what he would tell me is, Angela, I can protect my
Yep.
kids. And I said, are you fucking stupid?
Yeah.
Like I didn't know what else to say, He's like, you're such a bully. I'm like, no, but seriously, like, are you stupid?
Yep.
Who sits there and says, "Oh yeah, well, I can." You sound like an idiot. You sound so ignorant, right?
From a professional standpoint, he either A has no idea what molestation looks like and how that works, which you
Right.
do, right? You have firsthand
Right.
knowledge of how that works. Or B, he is party to it. There are only two options there, right?
Right. Right.
There is
And so in
unaware. Yep. Yep.
yeah, in his mind, I mean, and he was abusive. So, but again, it's one of those things where we all have our shit, we all have our
We do.
traumas.
Right. That's right.
He probably has his shit and just never worked on it. So it's not to say that let's sit here and I'll talk shit about him, right? Because
Right.
you know me, I'm like, well, we try to take a learning lesson and we move on because
You
sitting there
call
and
what
saying,
happened from that.
so yeah, okay. So then he starts having the kids lie for him. So
Sure.
he was like, tell them that your mom is having sex in front of you.
Oh
Tell
my.
them that she's doing drugs. I swear. Like, I wish I could make this shit up. I was in nursing school too. This was the end of nursing school. And he's like, yeah, tell him that. I was like, is he fucking kidding me? And so I'm telling them, my background, DCS. And I was like, I'm the one that called you guys. Like, what the
Why
fuck?
would I
How is
do that?
this?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so she kept telling me, like, I have no reason to blame you. I have no reason to say anything, right? And she was like, but you need to get the kids away from him. Otherwise, we're going to take them away from you for negligence. So
Wow.
I'm working on it. Yeah. So I was working on it. I said, I'm trying to get my NCLEX for nursing. And I'm going to be working towards getting a lawyer and everything like that. Right. And so then things kept happening. Like the kids kept saying that he was hitting them and there was violence. Like he got into a full-blown fist fight with some dude and and the kids were describing how bloody he was. And I was
Jeez.
just like, what the fuck, And they're telling him, he's telling them, like, if you love me, you'll say these things. And I was like, this is so toxic. And you know
So
what this lady told me? Let me tell you, DCS, you do not have to have any kind of background or
right.
training.
That's right. They're so
So
desperate for people. Yep.
exactly. So this lady's like, well, we can't do anything about verbal. I was like, so verbal in me, and it to me is some ways even more abusive than the physical, right? Because you're taking that person down from the inside, right? If it's more physical, then you have to deal with like stimulation and stuff like that. But when it's inside, it's literally ripping your sense of self and destroying it,
I think
right?
I've said this before on this show, but my wife was molested. I was emotionally abused. She has a lot of she has a lot of grace for the abuse that I suffered, because she said her emotional abuse was worse than the other. So even though I didn't experience that, she's like, we've had the same experience, because what my dad did and said to me inside was more harmful even than what he did to my body, which I eventually healed from and moved on from, at least on
Right.
a lot of levels. So I fully agree with you. The internal teardown is the worst thing. It's the
Yeah.
worst thing that happens.
It literally can destroy you, right? So I'm like saying that to her. I'm like, this is really, and she's like, no, sorry.
Yeah.
Like literally everything. I was showing her text messages, everything, right? And she's like, well, we can't do anything off of this. Can't
Ugh.
do anything off of this. But then my kids, who are super young, are sitting there and saying these things about me. My son said I locked him out of the house, and he was like 3. And he's like, yeah, she locked me out of the house for no, he was 5 or 6. So he was a little older, but still super young, right? Super impressionable. And he's like, yeah, she locked me out of the house for hours. And the DCS worker is like, well, and even then, she's like, well, there's nothing to really be concerned here. We're not worried. Here's the problem though. The problem is that my daughter had a lot of issues with anger. Obviously, like
For reasons.
years later now, she's opening up about how abusive her father was, right?
Mhm.
Um and so she had to go to like a behavioral health facility at one point.
Mhm.
And so when she goes, um I'm dealing with I'm talking to the nurse there and I'm telling her what's going on, and she was like, girl, like you, if DCS doesn't do anything about this, you need to go to the senator. But don't tell them that you're going to the senator.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Just
Yeah.
go to the senator. So me and my hot-headed fucking no filter dumbass gets angry at her because I'm just like afterwards I'm talking to the DCS worker and I was like, this is just infuriating to me, because she brings me the thing saying that um my son said that I was abusing him, right? Because I spanked his butt. So she put on there like, oh, she's abusing. She's like, it's fine. Like, it's nothing. Like, we're probably not going to hold on to this. It's basically just notifying you that we were notified, blah, 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 right? And I was like, what's it going to take for you guys get some shit done and make sure my kids are safe? And I was so heated, Joshua, fucking idiot. I was like, what do I have to do? Go to the senator? Dumbass.
Shouldn't have said it. Yeah. Yeah.
4 days later, she shows up at my door. She acted like everything was fine. 4 days later, she shows up at my door with a cop.
Mhm.
And that lady at the behavioral health facility had told me, be careful. Don't say that you're going to the senator, because what happens is that they will flip everything and put it all on you.
Right.
And I was like, I don't see that happening, right? In my mind, they're saying that there's nothing really to tie me, right? So they pull out the most ludicrous, like I'm telling you, literally, they put in the report that I was emotionally unstable due to my trauma and unable to watch my kids because I couldn't co-parent with my ex.
Mhm.
So what did they do? Gave them to my ex.
Mhm.
Mind you, the reason for my trauma
Right.
was my ex
Right.
and my kids' trauma. So let's go ahead and fuck with your head and give the kids to the one man that has caused all of this, because that's the right answer, right? I kid you not, I literally had people that were in the behavioral health team for my kids that were quitting their jobs because they were sitting there and telling me this is so fucked up. And they were telling their bosses, and they were even sticking up for me in, they're called CFT meetings. So it's like it's all the behavioral health team get together. So the DCS worker would come in there and she would accuse me of stuff. She would say, well, you're not in therapy. You're not in therapy. I'm like, yes, I am. But then she still put it in the report that I wasn't in therapy. And the behavioral health team once again was like, no, she is in therapy. And then they were like, oh, she's on, they did a hair follicle test. And they were like, well, you are on amphetamines. I take ADHD pills. Oh, you never told us that. And again, the behavioral health team was like, yes, she did. And each time they yelled at that person. Mm-hmm. So they would get quiet with me, like the whole behavioral health team, and tell me, we can't really talk about this. Mm-hmm. We can't really talk about this because we're getting told that we need to stop. It took my therapist calling the ombudsman, which is the complaints department.
Oh, that is.
They called, and she called and she said, do you guys not fucking take domestic violence seriously and abuse seriously? And they were like, absolutely. And she was like, she explained my story. And she was like, this is so traumatizing. Listen, I even had a supervised visit where my daughter is sitting there and she's wearing a dress because I had to do supervised visits, right? So this all happened right around the holidays. So I had to have a Thanksgiving that wasn't on Thanksgiving. And then I had to have Christmas not on Christmas. And I wore a Santa hat, and I got one of these huge bags. It's a red bag that they usually put the Christmas trees in. And I used it as my quote unquote Santa bag. And I put the gifts in there and I acted like Santa Claus because we weren't allowed to wrap the gifts either. So I was handing out the gifts. Right. Because I'm going to give drugs, right? And I made that joke, and then the DCS workers look at me. I'm like, God, do you not take a joke?
She's going to write that down. Yeah.
Right. She's going to write that down. She's trying to give drugs to her kids. My kids had got so bad. My son would beat me. 5 years old, beat me in the supervised visit, and then laugh when I started crying. Mm. And then my daughter's wearing a dress, and we're putting icing on the cookies, and she starts crying to me and she's bawling her eyes out. And she's like, I'm so scared. And I was like, it's fine. It's just frosting. Like, tell your dad. No, you don't understand, Mom. And I was like, I'm sure he'll understand, because it's a supervised visit. So I can't just be like, yeah, your dad's a piece of shit. Right. But it's in my head. Even then, that's not helpful. And then the other two kids were sitting there and they're like, Mom, you don't even know he's going to get at her. Well, I just found out recently that she would take the brunt. Anytime one of them was in trouble, she said she got scared of her other two siblings because daddy hit really hard. And she was like, well, I know he's a man though. And I said, no, honey. I don't care if you're a fucking Hulk man.
Right.
It doesn't matter who you are. You should not be doing something that violent. And all of my kids were violent. And then
that's what they saw.
The lady supervising the visit that was supervising it, she called and made a complaint about what was being said about the abuse. The lady comes to the DCS worker, you're going to love this, not in like a love way, but like, what the fuck? Blow your mind, right? Talk about gaslighting and talk about mental instability. She came to my house and told me that I was coercing the kids. And I said, it was a supervised fucking visit and I didn't even make the complaint. And she said, it's in your eyes. What? This is during COVID. I'm wearing a fucking mask. I'm looking at her like, bitch, do you think I'm that stupid? My lawyer was even like at the beginning, he's sitting there and he's like, oh, calm down. It's not like a conspiracy. I was like, you have no fucking idea. I was like, people tell me all the time, if something bad is going to happen, it will happen to you, Angela. That's just how shit happens within your life, right? And I'm like, right, that won't happen, except it does. And I warned him of that. And towards the end, like my first lawyer, I had to get 2 lawyers to fight for my kids, 35 grand. And it took my therapist making the complaint a week or so later. I don't remember. It's been a few years, but it was around a week, right? That we went to court And against DCS's approval, the judge dropped it. Come to find out, the court system in Phoenix was calling down and saying, you need to drop this. I said, I told my lawyer, I said, you still think it's not a fucking conspiracy? Because when you put the pieces together, I love how people like to gaslight me and act like I don't have a fucking brain, but
Let's stop right there because
evidence.
there are people that are right in this spot right now. So I don't know if y'all can hear Angela's energy and what was happening. From a life coaching standpoint, Angela decided to start standing up for what was right with her kids. That led to Angela standing up for her actual self. And for a lot of moms, their kids
You
are
broke up there, Josh, real quick.
Oh, did it? Yeah, it's been sketchy. So for a lot of moms, so Angela started out standing up for what was right with her kids, and then started up standing up for herself. For a lot of moms, this is the path to healing, to something better. And if you saw Angela a year ago when I did, working at Big Nose Kate's as the band, and she was waiting tables, you would see a completely different person. You might not recognize her. That is because she started this journey by standing up for what's right for her kids, and then continued on into what is right for herself and what is good for herself and healing and all that you see today. So if you are in that space right now where it feels like you poked the bear that you've been avoiding for so long in your life, going, they're going to call down hell. They will. As soon as she stood up energetically, the minute she stood up to an abuser, that was the beginning of her standing up to all abusers, past, present, and future. That means that she's now calling bullshit on things that she doesn't like. She's using her voice. Is that extreme? Yes. And that will be used against you too. When you lash out in anger because you're totally frustrated, yeah, they'll turn that against you. So if you're in this spot, do not give up. Learn to control yourself, learn to get what you want, but do not give up standing up for yourself. So I want to just make that a turning point. What did you do since, and what results did you create? Where are you at in the journey? Because it might not be over. Like, it's very likely not over. Very likely you're somewhere in that journey.
So I did win them back, and it got to the point where thank you, even my lawyer. So he kept telling me, just play the game. You got to stay calm, right. Play the game, play the game, play the game.
You trusted him. You chose to follow his advice.
Yes. Why? And even he was infuriated. Sure. Because he was like, you're doing everything you're supposed to, and they're still attacking me. And I was like, yeah, it's like I warned you or something, you know? And somebody said to me the other day, because I was sharing this, what brought me to saying I should probably share this with others, because her face was just like, to see where you were and where you are, it's kind of unreal. I can't imagine that being you.
Oh, yeah, right.
But the one thing is that our past does not have to define us. So for me, it was even more traumatizing, right? Because everything keeps happening and you're thinking, okay, it's going to get better. I was with a drug dealer boyfriend, left him, got with my ex-husband, and he abused me the day after we got married. And that kept going on. And it took him almost making me paralyzed from the neck down, which we can say for a different story. But it took that for me to say, I need to leave, right? Right once I'm about to get my NCLEX, this shit happens. And I lose my kids. Then I get them back. Oh, happy story. No, because then I'm traumatized. The kids are traumatized, and the kids, I have to work on them and stabilize them. And I don't even have time to work on myself, which brings me more chaotic stress inside for that chronic trauma, that trauma that stays with you. And so my anxiety so high all the time, and everybody's judging me, and nobody really knows my story, right? Because they're like just judging who I am. So when I started healing and I started opening up about these things, people were so uncomfortable, were making fun of me. And in my head, I was like, this needs to change.
Good.
And that's when I walked out of my job, started getting these certifications, started building my business from the ground up. And literally, I fall and I get myself the fuck back up. I fall and I get back up. I'm literally starting, I'm on day 1 of the 75 hard challenge. I'm doing that right now. And my boyfriend's doing it with me. So it's like a couples thing. It's pretty awesome. I was like, you're going to do it with me? He's like, yeah, it's cool. But it's about continual growth.
Right.
I didn't just wake up one day and I'm here where I'm at. Right. This was the hardest struggle. And the only way to describe it is a fucking phoenix rising out of the ashes, because that was me again and again and again. And I kept looking at it and saying, there's got to be a reason this keeps happening. And then when I started building my business, I was sitting there coaching someone and it all clicked in my head. I was sitting there and I was like so nervous because it was one of my first sessions and I'm talking to them and I'm like, fuck, I don't even know what I'm like. How am I going to know? Am I going to even give them the wrong advice and all this stuff? Right. And every time this happens, every time too, when I coach, I'll be talking and then all of a sudden it'll click in my head and I'll know exactly what to say to them, how to say it. It's triggering. It's raw. It's real, but it fucking makes their mind get blown each and every time. Like the girls that are in the trauma informed coaching class with me, we've been doing like one-on-one coaching together, right, for practice. And I've had 3 girls in the last week tell me, Angela, you're amazing. I just want to be in your energy. And there's just something about you. I know you're at the beginning of your business, but your business, once it takes off, it is going to soar. And that to me is why I do what I do, because yes, it is hard to talk about DCS. Yes, it's hard to talk about all the people in my life that have hurt me and harmed me. But to be able to talk about it now is fucking powerful. And I want women to be able to be vulnerable, to be open. I took a whole video of all my cellulite in every crevice. Like I just was like this, doing a video, moving my body around so that they can see. Let's watch at day 75. Right. It is okay to be vulnerable and it's okay to have flaws and make mistakes. But like I said last week, mistakes are not mistakes. Mistakes are experiences.
They're learning.
And it is taking that quote unquote mistake and transforming it into something useful for your life.
Yep. So if you turned, like we talked earlier, if you decided to stand up or you're thinking about standing up, just know that this pattern that Angela just lived out for you in like real raw terms, this is exactly what happens. I don't want to say every time because I don't define your existence or your experience, but it will be on an energy level, some version of this. She stood up for herself. At first, she just stood up for her kids. Whatever it takes to pull you through, coaches only care what results get, how we get results. So if it's your kids that pull you through, stand up. The minute you stand up, you will find out who the abusers are and who the supporters are, right? You notice that she talked about her boyfriend, clearly supportive. Clearly, based on some of the things that she just said. He's doing a hard challenge with her. There's things you probably don't know off camera, but he's supporting, not abusing, not standing in the way. Is he her final answer? We don't know that. She probably doesn't know that, but being supportive.
I don't know.
And I'm on this show, right? I don't make any money from this. This is not going to necessarily build my coaching business, but why am I on this show? Because I support people. I've been through this and now I want to support people. So look, Angela's attracted at least 2 people that you can see with your eyes and hear with your ears that are now pushing her forward. Are we the reason she's succeeding? Absolutely fucking not. That's what abusers will tell you. Abusers will tell you, if you love me, you'll do this for me. Abusers will tell you, you're only a success because of me. Absolute horse hockey. When Angela I see it's glitching. When Angela stood up for herself, she started this process. Only her, no one else was there. Even if it was for her kids didn't do it. She did it. Right. Then she found people that support the lawyer. There's another one, somebody that fought for you. Sure, he made some money. That's okay. Sometimes you pay people for support. That is completely legit. It is an energy trade. Sometimes you pay for support. And so she paid him for support, and he truly supported, not joined the list of people like the lady at DCS who was not supporting, who was
Right.
not even doing her job. So I'm going to leave time for Angela to wrap it up, but I just wanted to make sure that you saw the pattern. If it's your pattern, do not despair. Keep fighting for yourself. You will find the supportive people.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
yours,
And
Angela.
definitely. And with that, I just want each and every person, whether you're a man, you're a female, whatever, she,
I
he,
can tell
it,
my
they,
story. It would be the same, by the way. If you are a man, it's the same, right? It's the same energy pattern. Yep.
right, right.
Well said.
Because it's not about specifics,
Right.
it's about the experience.
Yep.
And like you said, you can sit there. Yeah. Like I could have stopped at working on my
Anyone.
kids, right?
Yep. Yep.
But it's about growth each and every day. So you don't stop.
Right.
You don't stop. I'm
Yep.
a yoga instructor. You really think I have to do the 75 hard challenge? But
Right.
I'm doing it.
Yep.
But I'm doing it because I believe in growth each and every day. And if we're not growing, what the fuck are we doing?
Yep.
Thank you so much, guys. You have been fucking awesome. We'll see you next time and have a great day.